Of all the methods psychologists use, the experiment is the only one that can actually prove cause and effect. Welcome back to ACE ISC Psychology, where in today's video, we will cover everything the ISC syllabus asks for on the experimental method, what variables are, what controls are, how an experiment is designed step by step, and one advantage and one disadvantage of the method. It is a chapter that looks technical on the surface, but makes logical sense once it clicks. One of the main concepts to understand here is the problem of confounding variables, other factors that might explain the relationship between two things. Observation and surveys can show us correlations, things that go together, but they cannot rule out alternative explanations. This is called correlation is not equal to causation, implying two things going together does not mean one causes the other. Let us consider an example. Ice cream sales and drowning rates both rise in summer, so the correlation is strong. But can you say eating ice cream causes drowning? No. We can see there is a common variable, summer heat, which may cause both. This is the confounding variable problem. An experiment solves this problem by doing one very specific thing. It changes one thing deliberately while keeping everything else the same, and then measures what happens. If everything else was the same and the only difference was the thing we changed, then any difference in the result must have been caused by what we changed. That is the logic. Make sure you understand this properly because it is a very important concept. To understand the experimental method, you need to be clear on what a variable is. A variable is simply anything that can vary or change, any factor that can take on different values. In a psychology experiment, there are dozens of things that could potentially vary: the age of participants, the time of day, the noise level, how much sleep they had, their anxiety level, or the specific task they were given. The art of experimental design is managing all of these variables in a way that allows you to draw a clean conclusion. The ISC syllabus asks you to know three key variables: the independent variable, the dependent variable, and controlled variables. The independent variable is the factor that the researcher deliberately changes or manipulates. It is the cause, the thing that is being tested. It is called the independent variable because the researcher controls it independently. It does not depend on anything else in the experiment. The dependent variable is what the researcher measures, the outcome. It is the effect. It is called dependent because its value depends on what happens to the independent variable. Consider an example. Research shows that people who drink more coffee perform better on memory tasks. Does coffee then improve memory? Maybe. But maybe people who drink more coffee are also less sleepy, which makes them try harder on tests. Maybe coffee drinkers tend to be more educated. Maybe the relationship has nothing to do with coffee at all. Maybe the same personality type that leads people to drink coffee also leads them to perform well on memory tasks. So in this experiment, what is the independent variable? Coffee or caffeine? Dependent variable will then be performance on the memory task. It depends on how much caffeine the participant has received. Controlled variables, or confounding variables, are all the other factors that could potentially affect the dependent variable, which the researcher has deliberately kept constant to prevent them from interfering with the results. In the caffeine and memory experiment, controlled variables would then include the time of day testing occurs, the noise level in the testing room, the difficulty of memory task, whether participants have eaten recently, the age range of participants, and so on. If all of these are kept same across all conditions, then any difference in memory scores must be due to the caffeine, not to any of these other factors. This is what makes the experiment so powerful. By controlling everything except the independent variable, you isolate its effect. Now, before running an experiment, the researcher states the hypothesis, a specific testable prediction about what they expect to find. A hypothesis is not a question. It is a statement of an expected relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. For the caffeine experiment, for example, a hypothesis might be participants who consume 200 milligrams of caffeine will score higher on a memory test than participants who consume no caffeine. Notice three things about a well-formed hypothesis. It specifies what is being manipulated, it specifies what is being measured, and it also makes a very specific directional prediction. Now, an experiment typically involves at least two groups of participants who receive different levels of the independent variable. The experimental group, also called the treatment group, receives the condition that is being tested. In the coffee experiment, this is the group that receives caffeine. The control group receives no treatment or a neutral condition, often called a placebo. In the coffee experiment, this is the group that receives a drink with no caffeine, but who believe they might have received caffeine. The control group is the baseline. It shows what performance looks like without the independent variable being applied. Now we come to controls in an experiment, which refer to all the measures researchers have to take to ensure that the only thing causing a difference on the dependent variable is the independent variable. Let us look at some of the most important ones. Random allocation. Participants are randomly assigned to either the experimental group or the control group. This is crucial because it ensures that pre-existing differences between participants, like, for example, intelligence, anxiety, or prior experience, are distributed roughly equally across both groups by chance, rather than systematically favoring one group. Standardization. All procedures are kept identical across all conditions except for the independent variable. Every participant receives the same instructions, the same tasks, the same environment. This ensures that any difference in the dependent variable is generally due to the independent variable. The placebo. In many psychological experiments, participants in the control group are given a treatment that looks identical to the real treatment but has no active ingredient. This controls for the placebo effect, the phenomenon where people's behavior or performance changes simply because they believe they have received a treatment, regardless of whether they actually have. Now, another important concept you will often come across in psychology is single or double-blind procedures. What do these terms mean? In a single-blind experiment, participants do not know which group they are in, whether they receive the real treatment or the placebo. This prevents participants' expectations from influencing their responses. In a double-blind experiment, neither the participants nor the researchers interacting with them know who is in which group. This is the gold standard because it also prevents researchers from unconsciously treating the two groups differently or interpreting results differently based on their expectations. The ISC syllabus specifically asks you to know the steps in a psychological experiment. Here they are in order. Let us go through each briefly. Step 1. Identify the research question. The researcher begins with a question they want to answer, something they have observed in the real world or a gap in existing knowledge. They review existing research to understand what is already known and refine their question. Step 2. Form a hypothesis. Based on existing knowledge and their research question, the researcher states a specific testable prediction about the expected relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. This hypothesis will be either supported or not supported by the experiment. Step 3. Design the experiment. The researcher decides who will participate, how many people, how will the participants be allocated to the groups, what are the variables that need to be controlled, and what kind of ethical procedures need to be in place. Step 4. Select participants and allocate them to groups. Participants are selected from the population, ideally through random sampling, and then randomly allocated to the experimental or the control group. The number of participants should be large enough that random variation between individuals does not distort the results. Step 5. Conduct the experiment. The researcher runs the experimental procedure, that is, administering the treatment to the experimental group, the placebo or control condition to the control group, and then measuring the dependent variable for all participants under standardized conditions. Step 6. Collect and analyze the data. The dependent variable scores are recorded for all participants. Statistical analysis is then applied by calculating means, comparing groups, testing whether any difference between the experimental and control groups is statistically significant or whether it could have occurred by chance alone. Statistical significance means that the difference is unlikely to have occurred by chance alone. In psychology, if you see something like p is less than 0.05, that means less than 5% chance the result is due to chance, typically accepted as significant. Step 7. Draw conclusions and report findings. The researcher evaluates whether the results support or contradict the hypothesis, considers alternative explanations, acknowledges limitations, and then writes up the findings for publication, making them available for other researchers to evaluate, replicate, or challenge. Now, coming to advantages and disadvantages for the experimental method. This is a common question in exams, so pay attention. Advantage. The experiment is the only method in psychology that can establish cause and effect, causation, not just correlation. Because the researcher manipulates the independent variable while controlling everything else, any difference in the dependent variable can be confidently attributed to the independent variable. This is something no other method can achieve. Experiments are also replicable, means another researcher can repeat the exact same procedure and check whether they get the same results, which is essential for building a reliable scientific knowledge. The main weakness of experiments is its artificiality, low ecological validity. Laboratory experiments are conducted in artificially controlled settings that may not reflect how people actually behave in real life. Participants know that they are being studied, which can change their behavior. This is called demand characteristics, where participants try to figure out what the experiment is about and behave accordingly rather than naturally. Additionally, many important questions in psychology cannot be studied experimentally for ethical reasons. For example, you cannot randomly assign people to abusive childhood or traumatic experiences to study their effects. Now, 3 things from this section that exams always test students on. First, definitions. Know definitions for independent variables, dependent variables, and controlled variables precisely. These are 2-mark definitions and students lose them by being vague. Second, be able to understand and identify the independent variable and the dependent variable in any given scenario. The exam papers often give a description of an experiment and then may ask you to identify the variables. The trick is to ask yourself what the researcher changed, that is the independent variable. Then ask yourself, what are they measuring, that is the dependent variable. Third, the advantage is cause and effect, causation. The disadvantage is low ecological validity, demand characteristics. These 2 answers collect marks in almost every paper. If you found this explanation helpful, do like, share and subscribe to our channel for more exam-oriented content for ISC Psychology. Feel free to comment if there are any doubts. In the next video, we will cover statistics in psychology, mean, median, mode, range and standard deviation. See you in the next one.